Welcome back, everybody, to the KC Sports Report. I'm your host, Michael Darcy, and today I have the luxury to be joined by my good friend Josh Fan of ShowMeFootball.com and ArrowheadAddict.com, and together we're going to break down the Kansas City Chiefs' big-time win over the Cincinnati Bengals in the 2023 AFC Championship game. Chiefs Kingdom, this breakdown is long overdue, a couple days long overdue, but I wanted to hop on here and give you my actual thoughts with Josh Fan. If you saw my post-game video from the stadium, I was pretty amped up, and I think I gave a pretty good analysis of what I saw, but I was screaming over the music, and I was just very emotional in the moment, so I'm glad to get on this video and just talk about it in detail. And Josh, I saw your stream after the game. What a game. The Chiefs somehow found a way with guys going down left and right to pull out a gutsy win over the Cincinnati Bengals by a final score of 23-20, and they're going back to the Super Bowl. What are your, I don't want to say initial thoughts, but what are your thoughts a couple days after the game?
Yeah, now that we've had a few days and I'm seeing all the tweets come out from the Chiefs official account with the Super Bowl patches being stitched onto the jerseys and stuff, it's just so surreal. It's wow, we're really back in the Super Bowl again.
It's just, listen, we can't take this for granted, but we are watching the golden age of Chiefs football right before our very eyes. And to see this team, who before this game were 0-3 against the Bengals, and it just felt like they couldn't conquer these demons, they came out and the odds were against them. They were already underdogs at home against the Bengals, and they found a way. Even with Juju Smith-Schuster getting injured, Kadarius Toney getting injured, Mecole Hardman getting injured, you lost Willie Gay in this game, you lost L'Jarius Sneed in this game. It did not matter. The Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes pulled out one of the gutsiest wins I have ever seen. And I think at the end of the game, at the end of the day, the Chiefs wanted to win this game just more than the Bengals. And I think you could see that by the way the defense was playing. And I talked about that defensive line. Man, I'm so impressed. Chris Jones, 2 sacks. Frank Clark, 1.5 sacks. But Chris Jones had basically the game-winning sack in the final minutes of the fourth quarter by sacking Joe Burrow on third down, giving the Bengals an opportunity to punt the ball back to the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes ended up getting the ball, got a late hit out of bounds. The rest is history. Harrison Butker nailed that field goal, and we're going back to the Super Bowl. So it's incredible how this team was able to kind of persevere through the adversity. And I think that's a good sign of things to come in this Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's so good to be back in it. And like you said, they toughed it out against a really, really good Bengals team. And I know the Eagles are a really tough opponent. And I know a lot of people are probably going to be picking the Eagles to win this game. And they're not a bad pick because they're probably the most well-rounded team in the league, one of the most well-rounded teams in the league. But if the Chiefs can play with the sheer effort that they played with against the Bengals and have most of everybody healthy, I think they're going to be all right. And I really like their chances. I know we're still talking about this game. We don't want to branch too far into talking about the Chiefs versus Eagles because we'll have all of next week to do that. And we're going to exhaust every single storyline over the next couple of weeks. But yeah, you love to see just such a gutsy team win. And another one when it feels like they just had one against the Jaguars when Mahomes initially went down. This team has faced a lot of adversity in the postseason, and they just have kept persevering.
And one point that I kind of want to add on to what you just said, not trying to stray away too much from this topic, but I would say that the Eagles have not faced any adversity, and I think that could come back to bite them. But getting back to this game, it's just so incredible to see a team that just play with fire. They might not have come out and whooped the Bengals like we kind of wanted them to, but they fought from the very beginning to the very end, and ultimately, they just outperformed the Bengals when it mattered. Joe Burrow had a pretty decent game, but Patrick Mahomes on one leg was just better in the bigger moments, and he needed to be good. He was great, and that's just – it's so crazy that we're going back to the Super Bowl for the third time in the last 5 seasons. That is just incredible. And I think the Chiefs are going to have a really good chance to win that game. But I think that the health is going to be very important because losing Juju, losing Kadarius Toney, and losing Mecole Hardman, it almost hurt you in this Bengals game. But the Chiefs were able to overcome that with guys like MVS going off and Marcus Kemp catching passes, which I remember telling you this. I remember being at the stadium, looking up, seeing Marcus Kemp and saying, what is going on? Because it caught me by surprise.
Yeah, and actually the Chiefs released on Twitter a mock injury report for if they were practicing today. They didn't actually have practice. I think they'll have a practice tomorrow, but they released an injury report, and it was an estimation. And I think Willie Gay was limited, and I want to say there was one other player limited, but Tony, Juju, McCole, um, those were three big ones, and they all wouldn't have practice if there was practice today. So I really hope this team can heal up over this bye week. They're really going to need it. They needed this bye week, and hopefully none of those injuries are too serious.
I don't think that they're going to be too serious to keep them out of this game, but you do kind of have to look at it and say, Mecole Hardman's probably done. He came back to play in this game, and honestly, that took a lot of guts because he just wasn't ready. And he caught a pass or two. And I remember on that pass that he caught, I think he got hit in the abdomen region, re-aggravating that injury. It's just not good. But to see him come through and play in this game, it's really impressive. And it kind of just shows you how much he wanted to be out there. Juju with the knee. I mean, knee injuries are tricky. You never know what that could be. Kadarius Toney, I believe, wasn't it an ankle injury?
Yeah.
Ankles, I mean, with it, whenever it comes to the lower body, I can't give an active or I can't give a reasonable estimate because I just don't know. So hopefully those guys are ready to go. But, Patrick Mahomes was able to overcome the odds with his receivers out. And I think that definitely him having 2 weeks off again, or I guess 1 week off, is going to give him another chance to heal up that ankle.
Yeah, and you hope that the running game is more of a factor in the Super Bowl because, if you don't have the options that you want out there on offense in the passing game, you could at least try to lean on the running game. And the Chiefs tried to do that against the Bengals, but the running game wasn't there. I mean, both Pacheco and McKinnon averaged like 2 yards per carry. The case will have to be different in the Super Bowl if they start to experience a bunch of injuries again, because I don't know if they're going to get away with that.
Yeah, I don't know if they would either because the Chiefs really got beat on the offensive line side of the ball. Like they just could not get any push in the running game, and Pacheco was able to do enough to kind of keep his team in the game. He had 10 carries for 26, averaging 2.6 yards per carry. He really did his damage in the receiving game, having let's check that, 5 catches for 59 yards. So he was actually one of your top 3 wide receivers in terms of receiving yards. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, a guy that many Chiefs fans have complained about all season long, had 6 receptions for 116 yards and 1 touchdown catch. He was your wide receiver 1 in this game. And remember, Josh, we predicted it. We said that somebody outside of Travis Kelce was going to have to step up. And in this game, with all the other injuries, it was MVS.
Yeah, and I love it for him because I've always been an MVS guy. Even the people who, were always frustrated with him, I'm like, look, the guy is a quality wide receiver 2 or 3. He's a deep threat. He's always going to give you at least 600 or 700 yards every regular season, have a couple of touchdowns. Yeah, he'll have his frustrating drops, but he always comes up with the big ones. And that's exactly what he did all game long against the Bengals. He caught all the big ones, and he really carried that offense.
He really did. When everybody else was out, he was consistent. And I remember he had that one catch where he was able to bring it back from behind his head and somehow secured it. And it was for like 19 yards or something crazy like that. So he made some big time catches down the stretch. And it's why this offense was kind of able to survive without guys like Juju and Kadarius and Mecole. But Josh, I want to talk about the defense because, again, coming into this game, my biggest belief was that the defense was going to have to be exceptional to beat the Cincinnati Bengals. And in this game, the Chiefs defense was otherworldly. They were fantastic. I mean, they kept Joe Burrow and that high-powered offense with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase and Joe Mixon to 20 points. I am very happy with that. What do you think was the defense best attribute on Sunday?
Oh, it had to have been the pass rush, right? I mean, they
Yeah.
sacked Joe Burrow 5 times, got to him a lot more than that. And we predicted before the game that the Chiefs were not going to win unless their pass rush got to Joe Burrow. You had a really just porous Bengals offensive line. And we had a Chiefs defensive line on paper that should have been getting pressure in this game. And finally they did. And they moved Chris Jones around the defensive line a lot, which is something they didn't do in the regular season matchup. He got his final sack on Joe Burrow rushing from the edge. Frank Clark stepped up, and I said it on my channel. There was not a defensive line in that game that had a bad game. They all stepped up.
They all did. And listen, I thought that Chris Jones was going to have a great performance, but when I tell you that he had the game of his life, that's no stretch. He had 2 sacks. I believe he had 10 pressures and a 27.5% win percentage on his pass rush snaps. Like, what he was able to do in this game was defensive player of the year type play. Like, it was just otherworldly. And Frank Clark, a guy that we have been very critical of, he had 1.5 sacks. Willie Gay got to the quarterback. I mean, everybody on this defensive line, like you said, got to him and had an impact on this game. And I think that was so critical because you had a lot of inexperience on the back end of your defense. Guys like Joshua Williams and Jalen Watson and Trent McDuffie and Brian Cook. And those guys stepped up, but I give a lot of credit to the Chiefs pass rush for kind of taking some of the pressure off of them, because when you got Chris Jones running at you and trying to take you out, Joe Burrow made some mistakes. He made 2 costly mistakes by throwing interceptions to 2 rookies, Joshua Williams and Jalen Watson. So the pass rush really was the reason why you won this game. And it's such a great thing to see, because last year in the AFC Championship game, when the Chiefs fell short, the defensive line was horrible. And so to see a team make that adjustment in just a single year and kind of change the tide, it's so refreshing.
Yeah, they really redeemed themselves this year. And I mean, that was on their mind. Chris Jones and Frank Clark, those guys were here last year. I mean, Dana too and Saunders, but it's mostly Clark and Jones because they're the 2 big names in the defensive line. That game was on their mind for the last 365 days. They were thinking, Chris Jones even said he dedicated his offseason to this game. This team knew that they were going to have to see the Bengals again in the postseason, and they probably knew they were going to see them again in the AFC Championship, and they were simply not going to let what happened last year happen again.
It was an over my dead body game for the defensive line, and that's what I love to see, and I hope the Super Bowl is the same way. But one point that I want to kind of throw out there and see what you think, if the Bengals had not talked an unbelievable amount of shit coming into this game, I would venture to say the Chiefs would not have won this game. I think the Bengals coming into this game as confident as they were almost propelled the Chiefs to victory. And I know that might sound crazy, but all throughout the week when the Bengals were talking like, oh, we're going to Burrowhead and we're the top dogs in the AFC, and then the mayor joined in on the shit talk, the Chiefs didn't say anything. And then after the game, after they won, they let it loose. I mean, you had Colin Saunders talking. You had Juan Thornhill talking. I mean, Travis Kelce had the hardest quote of all time by saying, "Know your role and shut your mouth, jabroni." Like, that's a drop the mic moment. So clearly they heard the shit talk. And Josh, I really think that if the Bengals had not talked a big game, the Chiefs probably wouldn't have won this game.
I mean, I still think they would have won just because they were pissed off about last year too. And they knew what was at stake in this game. I wouldn't say that they wouldn't have won, but like I've always said, bulletin material is never a bad thing. And when you give the Chiefs bulletin material, they're going to respond. And that's exactly what they did. They heard everything. And that's why they didn't really say anything during the week or talk back. They just let their play do the talking, and they were quiet. They were just focusing on the game plan. They came in, they executed, and then they started to shit talk back to them.
Which is how you should do it. Like, I'm all for, kind of eating it during the week before, but when you win the game and you have this kind of statement win, let it loose. Let Frank Clark talk. I mean, Frank Clark's been a talker since he's been in Kansas City. And just to see these guys kind of unload everything on the Bengals, it was so awesome to see, because Bengals fans couldn't say anything. The Bengals couldn't say anything. Even the mayor had to eat it on Twitter. So it was so awesome to see the Chiefs fire back with the best ammunition, and that's a win. Like, at the end of the day, I mean, the Bengals had to go home to Cincinnati, probably eating Skyline chili on the plane, just disappointed.
Skyline chili.
Dude, I got in a Twitter argument. Apparently, people in Cincinnati actually like that. It's basically dog food. I'm surprised it's regulated by the FDA.
I'm sure that the people in Cincinnati just pretend to like it because they want to have their thing. Like Kansas City has their barbecue, Cincinnati wants their thing, and it's Skyline chili. And it's like, look, it's below average store-bought chili.
Listen, it's chili that comes in a can. How great could it be? But getting back to football, I'm so happy the Chiefs won this game, man. This was a game that I would say I wanted more than any other game the Chiefs have ever played. And I know that sounds crazy considering we've played in Super Bowls, we've played in huge games before, but something about the fact that they had never beaten the Bengals, at least against Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes, I wanted this game because it felt like there was legacies on the line. There was just so much at stake. And to see them come out and just will each other to victory, it was just – it's so sweet, man. It's maybe the best win in the Patrick Mahomes era.
Oh, yeah, I agree. This one's very much up there. And the Bengals were this monkey on their back, and they finally shook it off. And I wanted this game so bad too, man. Like this was my Super Bowl in a way, even though we still got a Super Bowl to go. It's like you had to beat the Bengals, man. If you had lost this one again, like we would have never heard the end of it. In those media narratives that have been coming all year long, and all these people on TV that have always trying to put some other quarterback right there next to Patrick Mahomes, they would have actually had some ammunition to use. And nope, Mahomes, he came out and he's like, no, look, stop messing around, guys. I am the top quarterback in the league. And the Chiefs are once again looking to be on top of the entire NFL in a year where no one really expected them to be here. No one was picking them to win the AFC. No one was picking them to go to the Super Bowl. So the Chiefs really are sitting pretty right now. And also another note about the Bengals is, for all the talking that they've done, you would think they've won a championship before. Let's not forget that they lost the Super Bowl last year. They still don't have a ring. And now they lost the AFC Championship this year. And it almost kind of feels like, if you're a Bengals fan, that you're disappointed that out of 2 trips to the AFC Championship game, you couldn't come out with a Super Bowl.
Shannon Sharp said it best. The Cincinnati Bengals are the Memphis Grizzlies of the NFL. They do a lot of talking, but they've never won anything. And I think that just sums it up perfectly, because the Bengals were very confident coming into this game. When the Chiefs have won this game, I guess coming into the game, they'd won it 2 times out of the last 4 tries. So they already were pretty good in conference championship games. And when you add fuel to the fire, it wasn't going to end well. And I remember saying that early on in the week. I just think that you're giving the Chiefs too much fire, and it really came back to bite them. And I'm so happy, because it just feels like in a year that the Chiefs were not expected to perform this way, they're still able to persevere and find a way to get it done. And I would argue this is maybe the best defense we've seen in the Patrick Mahomes era. I know that sounds crazy, but I don't think we've seen a pass rush quite like this. And the DBs are inexperienced, but they have a lot of talent. And once they kind of grow into their role, I mean, man, we're going to be set for the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, and we've got a lot of improving that we could do this offseason. We're going to have money to spend. We got 12 draft picks in the draft again. So, we're going to be reloading, and we're going to be right back in the mix next year. And that's what other teams don't realize. I was on social media after the game, and, I see Bengals fans saying, oh, we'll be back. The Chiefs, their window is closing. And it's like, how is their window closing? Do you have any idea what you're talking about? Everyone thought their window was closed this year, and they're back in the Super Bowl again. And now they've set themselves up better for the long term. They're not going anywhere.
Honestly, it kind of hurts me to say this, but I think it might be 100% true. The Chiefs trading Tyreek Hill might go down as one of the best decisions they've ever made. And that sounds crazy to just the ear, but if you think about how they were able to kind of set the standard by saying, hey, Tyreek, we love you. We think that you're great, but Patrick Mahomes is the engine that runs this machine. And at the end of the day, if we have him and we have Coach Reed, we're going to be okay. And I tweeted this out a couple days ago. What do you think Tyreek Hill feels right now? I mean, a year that he gets traded off and he has a great season, and Mahomes doesn't suffer at all, wins an MVP, and he has a chance to win a Super Bowl. Like, what does that say about the Kansas City Chiefs and more specifically Patrick Mahomes?
Well, I still think it was a great move for all parties, really. I didn't love the trade at first. I've come out and said that. You can go back and watch my video. I hated the Tyreek Hill trade when it first happened, and I still miss Tyreek Hill. And there's some games where I feel like if the Chiefs still had Tyreek Hill, they'd be better off because sometimes they still struggle to beat man coverage with their receivers and everything like that. But I mean, they're back in the Super Bowl, so you can't necessarily say that the trade wasn't a success. And Tyreek, he put up career numbers in Miami, and he's living in a city where he really likes it, and he already lived during the offseason. And I will always appreciate Tyreek Hill because he helped bring a Super Bowl here in 2019. And I will still always appreciate everything he did. I also wouldn't rule out Tyreek Hill retiring with the Chiefs later in his career, just saying. But yeah, it's really impressive what the Chiefs were able to do without him. And their defense probably doesn't perform as well as it did if they didn't reap the benefits of the Tyreek Hill trade.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying, that the Chiefs really did benefit because they made the decision, the conscious decision that, hey, we're okay with maybe taking a minor step back, but ultimately, in the long run, we are going to be very fine. And I think the Chiefs are even a little bit amazed with how the trade didn't really affect the season. And I don't think that Brett Veach really thought that the Chiefs were going to go back to the Super Bowl. And that's not saying that they weren't trying to give Pat the best people around him to make it, but it's hard to go back to the Super Bowl. And to do it in a year that you lost the best wide receiver in football and you had a young defense and just so many new pieces, it really just speaks to the quarterback and the coach that Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes are. So I think that it's only going to get harder in the AFC for the Bengals. I mean, keep in mind, Joe Burrow's still on a rookie contract. They're going to have to pay him. They're going to have to pay Jamar Chase. They're going to have to pay T. Higgins. They're going to have to make some tough decisions. So I think the Chiefs kind of have set the standard for becoming almost the New England Patriots in the sense that, hey, we understand that we have talented players, but we're going to release you, or I guess trade you, and just take younger talent and we'll make it work. And that's what the Chiefs have done. And I can't really say it hasn't worked because they're going back to the Super Bowl and they have a chance to win it.
Yeah, and another free agent that they got coming up just this offseason that is going to be a big deal. It'll be interesting to see what happens with him is their safety, Jesse Bates. And actually, I wouldn't rule out the Chiefs maybe targeting Jesse Bates in free agency because I don't know if the Bengals are going to be able to keep him. I know that they've kind of been linked to him before, and Juan Thornhill's a free agent. They could look to upgrade. Wouldn't that be so sweet if we could steal Jesse Bates from the Bengals and right the wrong of the 2018 draft when we took Breeland Speaks over Jesse Bates?
It'd be so sweet. It'd be Bengals fans would be in tears, but
Yeah.
they haven't had the salary cap bite them yet, and it will. And again, the Chiefs' success is
Their
so
owner is also very cheap,
unprecedented.
too.
Yeah, and Clark Hunt's shown that he'll spend money, and it's why the Chiefs have been in 5 consecutive AFC Championship games. It's why they've been in 3 out of the last 5 Super Bowls. Like, they have an owner that's willing to spend, a GM who knows where to put guys around Pat, and it's such an incredible time to be a Chiefs fan, man. Like, we're going back to the Super Bowl. We have a chance to win a second championship in the last 5 years. This is Dynasty X.
Yeah. I mean, if they don't win the Super Bowl, I would struggle to call them a dynasty. But if they win it, you have to have the conversation because they would have been in 3. They would have been in 5 AFC championships, winning 3 of them. And if you have 2 Super Bowl wins, I mean, in the modern NFL, that's as close to a dynasty as you can get if it's not a dynasty.
At the end of the day, I don't really care whether NFL fans consider it a dynasty. The Chiefs are on one of the best runs the NFL has ever seen, and it's because they were able to escape this AFC Championship game, though hobbled, though injured, with a win. And yet again, the Chiefs are going back to the Super Bowl, and that's just an unbelievable thing. So, Josh, that's really all I have to talk about in this video. Do you have anything else you want to add?
I feel like there was something I did want to say, but I forgot what it was. So,
Did it revolve around a free agent?
no. It had some. I don't know. Well, I'll talk about this before we go, so I at least have something to say, and maybe it'll come back to me while we talk about this. Tom Brady officially retired today, so
He
he's
did.
gone.
May he rest in peace respectfully. I listen, man. He retired last year, and everyone kind of did their oh my gosh, we lost a legend, like almost like he died, but they were just they lost their minds, and then he pulled this little publicity stunt and came back for the season. Basically, got dropped on his head and got bounced in the first round of the playoffs. Listen, I respect Tom Brady. I don't like Tom Brady. I kind of feel bad for him because not to bring his personal life into it, but that marriage and the divorce, that's rough on a guy. And so I do kind of feel for him there, but he's just, I'm glad that he's not in the NFL anymore.
There were rumors that he maybe wanted to go to Miami or he wanted to team up with Sean Payton somewhere, but Sean Payton went to Denver and Miami recommitted to Tua being their QB. And people are saying that Tom Brady's options pretty much dried up to the point he retired. I think if he really wanted to play, he would play. I think he's done. I mean, he came back this season, and though he put up a lot of numbers, a lot of it came in garbage time of games where the Bucs were just getting, their shit kicked in. So I think he's done. I think him coming back this year kind of tarnished his legacy just a little bit. If he had just ended off losing in the NFC Championship game last year and passing the torch off to the Rams and the younger QBs and whatnot of this generation, he would have been a lot better off. This season was just not a good look for him at all, really.
He should have retired after he beat the Chiefs. That would have been the best way to go out. He would have probably had even more legend to his name because he went to the NFC in a COVID year and beat the Chiefs, who had not really lost to anybody during that season. That, I think, would have helped his legacy. Not that his legacy needs any help because he's got 7 Super Bowl rings, but yeah, let's just say I'm not going to exactly miss that guy on the football field on Sundays. So yeah.
There's a small part of me that kind of wish that the rumors of him going to the Raiders were true and he could go to the Raiders and Mahomes could just beat up on him for another couple seasons and improve his record against him.
Yeah, I mean, he's already got a really good regular season record against Tom Brady. It's just in the postseason, Brady's had the better teams. So I think that somebody else made this really good point, not to stray too far away before we wrap this thing up, but Bill Russell isn't regarded as the GOAT of the NBA. He's got the most rings. He's probably got the most accolades, but we consider Jordan or LeBron the GOAT. Now, I know Josh is definitely not going to agree with the LeBron thing, but we consider Jordan the GOAT, and Jordan has 6. He does not have what, 13? Does Bill Russell have 13 or 11?
He has 11.
Yeah.
He went to 13.
That's absurd. That will never happen again, but we don't consider Bill Russell the GOAT because he wasn't more talented than Michael Jordan or LeBron James for that matter. So I think that, Mahomes is obviously going to have to win this one and he's going to have to win some more. But if Mahomes has 5 rings and Tom Brady's still at 7 and Mahomes is shattering Brady's records, that guy's the GOAT.
Yeah. I mean, he doesn't have to win 7 to be put above him all time. It'll certainly help the closer he can get. He can win 3 or 4 and still people can still be like, yeah, I think he's the greatest of all time after everything is said and done. When you look at the stats and the success and everything like that, he doesn't have to get 7, but 3 or 4, I think you can start having the discussion.
And I'll tell you what, man, he's on pace. If he plays 20 years in the league, he's on pace for what? 2, 4, 6. Well, I'm not going to count up that high just because he's not going to get 8 rings probably. But anyway, if he keeps playing and winning Super Bowls at the record and the rate that he is, he's going to have a lot of them. And I think that just shows you the kind of culture that Patrick Mahomes brings and the kind of winner that he is. Patrick Mahomes is a winner. Tom Brady is a winner. Guys like Aaron Rodgers and Drew Brees just aren't winners. Josh, do you have anything else you want to add in conclusion?
No, I think that's it. I wish the other thing had came back to me, but it's what we can end on Tom Brady retiring.
Yeah, that is a pretty good note, I would say, to end this whole thing on. But, again, the Kansas City Chiefs were able to pull out a gutsy win against the Cincinnati Bengals in the 2023 AFC Championship game by a final score of 23-20.
Oh, actually,
go ahead.
One more thing.
Get it out.
The Chiefs are still undefeated since Chiefsaholic went to prison.
Is that what was in your brain that you lost?
That was one of them, yeah.
Okay, I'm glad that you brought that up.
By
Chiefsaholic,
the way,
stay in prison.
by the way, the New York Times did an article on his arrest, and you guys should really go read it. Like, they actually went super in depth. They actually called Chiefsaholic in prison and asked if they could interview him about details, about his arrest and his crime. And Chiefsaholic basically said, "Not unless you guys are willing to pay like my legal fees, my lawyer fees, my bail." And then he hung up the phone. And apparently he's actually like a lifelong criminal and had been going to Target for years and stealing products and then trying to return them for money. And that's basically Chiefsaholic. Okay, I'm really going off on a tangent here before we end on Chiefsaholic. But Chiefsaholic apparently was this guy that really found himself being like this face in the Chiefs fan community and was trying to keep up appearances, but ultimately ended up finding out he couldn't afford it. So he did some very scandalous things to try and afford the lavish lifestyle of being Chiefsaholic.
I'm so excited for the Netflix documentary that drops one day. That is going to be one of the best because someone's got to get on that. It would be a very good watch.
I think so too.
Besides Chiefsaholic and Tom Brady retiring, do you have anything else you want to add?
No, that's it.
All right. Chiefs win AFC Championship game by a final score of 23-20. They shut up the shit-talking Cincinnati Bengals, and they're going back to the Super Bowl. So what a time to be alive, Chiefs fans. What a time to be alive. Josh, where can the people find you?
You can find me here on YouTube, Josh Fan, just my name. You can also check out my work on showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com. And you can follow me on Twitter at showmefb for Show Me Football.
Do that stuff, guys. It'll all be linked in the description of this video. As for me, you can subscribe to this channel. Check out the website, kcsportsreport.com, the Instagram, KC_sportsreport, and the Twitter at KCSportsReport. Until next time, guys, thank you for watching this video, and go Chiefs, and rest in peace, Tom Brady.